Alright guys, what is up? How are we doing this week? This week was an interesting week because this week I learned a lot about what I didn't know last week, and I'll tell you why that's important. But first, as always in this video series, I'm going to give you a little snippet about what I'm going to talk about, and then I'll talk more in depth about everything. So first, this week I learned 2 chapters in the thinkpython book. For all intents and purposes, these are the last 2 chapters in this book. It is chapter 17 and 18. Now, chapter 17 was on classes and methods, and chapter 18 was on inheritance and of classes, right? So inheritance, basically like parent-child connection. And then in the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about math. So if you stay tuned, I'm going to be talking about how I learned math from nothing to 2 plus 2 all the way to calculus for data science. Alright, so now let's get into it. So this week I was very excited because I started learning things about object-oriented programming that was really confused me the last couple chapters. As you guys know, the last video I talked a lot about underscore main underscore, and I was so confused about that topic. I was like, what is this? But in this chapters we learned a lot more about that. We learned underscore init underscore, and we learned about underscore add underscore. Man, I don't know if there's a better way to say that, but we learned all about creating those methods, and it was so cool. So this week, instead of doing chapter 17, then the chapter 17 questions, and the chapter 18 questions, I just went full on and learned all the 2 chapters, and then went back and did the problems. I first started with doing the problems that were inside the chapter. So every time he does a new section, he always gives you a little like in section problem. I usually don't do this, but for these, it's very useful. Very useful. The reason I don't usually do this is because I like to study away from the computer, like just from a book, as I've mentioned before. But now it's very important that I do this, especially for objects. Okay, so that's basically it. A little bit more in depth actually in chapter 18. Inheritance was so cool because it basically teaches you how you can make a class and make methods for that class, which we learned in chapter 17, and then you can get a class and inherit a lot of the methods that come from the parent class. Now that is pretty cool, but it also comes with a lot of problems with debugging and just following the flow of execution, because there's this thing called overloading. Overloading is basically when you create a method. Let's take an example. Let's say a method that we already know is kind of built into Python, like okay, so like a math one, like log, and we want it to work with our new class object. So in order to do that, we need to create a method that overloads it so that we can make it work with the class object. Now, it's actually very simple to do, and it's very fun as well. But it gets kind of tricky because let's say you call a method and it turns out not to be the method you wanted to call because you called it from another place. So we learned all about that kind of debugging, and there's actually quite a lot. One of the most useful ways is to always create your method with a little print statement that says, this method was run from this and this place, and therefore you end up knowing exactly which methods you call when you have a lot of methods, and it's pretty useful. Okay, so that was what I learned. Now, there's one more chapter in the book. This one chapter is chapter 19, and all it really is a bunch of stuff that he skipped over. The author skipped over and wanted to just mention that it exists. Now, I don't really consider that a chapter. There's no real questions with it. It's just kind of, here are some things that you should know that I skipped. So I'm just going to read that this weekend. And so on Monday, I can start with a completely new project. So up to now, I actually don't know how long I've been studying for. It's been a couple of weeks. This is video 7, so 8 weeks. So it's been 2 months, and it is now time to learn math, all the way to statistics, including calculus and linear algebra. Now, the funny thing is that, well, it's not funny, it's just convenient, is that I already know up to calculus. I just need to go back and learn statistics and linear algebra. Now, I want to learn math starting from the beginning, so that means, from 2 plus 2 all the way to calculus, integrals, and everything else in statistics, probabilities, all from the beginning, because there was some point in my math career where I developed a hole in my understanding, and I'm not really sure where it is, so I'm just gonna watch videos from the very beginning, 2 plus 2, on Khan Academy. Khan Academy has over 5,000 videos on math, and I plan on watching all of them. I don't have no idea how long this is gonna take to learn so much, or at least refresh my memory with so much, but I was expecting, 3 months or so. That means that we're really heading towards the end of those 6 months that I was supposed to learn data science. And we still have to work on a project that includes, machine learning or some type of, linear regression or some project, but we're not even there yet. So I'm going to try my best to see what I can do in another 2 months. I've learned so much programming in these 2 months with this book, and I am so happy I'm finally done. But now comes time to move on and move to math. So that's next week, and of course I'll continue the videos. And if you guys know of any book that I can learn math from the very beginning to the very end of calculus, please let me know, because I do not want to use videos, but I see Khan Academy as my only way of getting the full breadth of math in a quick one easy place. So, yep, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.